The Indigenous voice in the Australian Parliament is a debate that has been ongoing for many years. Just recently, a panel discussion was held in the electorate of Hughes, featuring former Prime Minister Tony Abbott and journalist Joe Hildebrand, to discuss the pros and cons of a proposed referendum. The discussion had been running for about 2 hours, when a Dungutty and Gumbayngur man from New South Wales suddenly made his way onto the stage and demanded to be heard. The man immediately chastised the panelists, saying they were talking in system words and ignoring the voices of Indigenous people. He mentioned the Howard government's decision to abolish the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Commission, which had been a major blow to First Nations people's representation in the nation's politics. The crowd erupted as the crowd members spoke, many of them lending their support and saying, "The truth hurts." However, moderator Jenny Ware attempted to wrap things up, cutting the live stream of the forum. Abbott then went on to explain his respectful dialogue with the man after the forum, and mentioned his support for the Voice to Parliament referendum, yet had reservations about the wording of the government's question. Joe Hildebrand, on the other hand, had been advocating for the yes vote. He maintained that the Parliament had ultimate control over any legislation created, regardless of the Voice's advice. He also explained how people were capable of changing the Parliament if they were not in agreement with any decisions it would make. The Second Nations man's interruption was an incredibly powerful moment, and shows how passionate and determined the Indigenous people are in getting their voice heard. It also highlights the importance of platforms such as the Internet and social media, which potentially allowed the widespread dissemination of these issues. It's clear that the Indigenous people of Australia won't stop until they are fully represented and their issues are at the forefront of nations' political discourse. It remains to be seen what the outcome of the referendum will be, but whatever the result, it certainly won't be the end of the Indigenous people's fight for recognition and a seat at the nation's decision-making table. At the end of the day, we need to remember that the First Nations people of our country deserve to be listened to and respected. We cannot ignore the cries of our people any longer, and must do what we can to ensure that their voices are heard and their issues are taken into account. So as we Australians listen to our Indigenous leaders and activists, let us pledge to do what we can to create a nation where the voices of all people, First Nations and non-Indigenous alike, are respected and included in the discussion. We cannot allow the discrimination, oppression and injustice that Indigenous people have suffered at the hands of colonialism and racism over the past 200 years to continue to be the status quo. Let us show our solidarity and work together to create a nation that is proud of its Indigenous heritage and of its diverse and vibrant people.